Welcome everyone to our peer advisor Q&A. So hopefully this is a chance for you to get some of those questions you've had about the RC off your chest, have a chance to hear about some of those answers from the experts, actual students in the RC. Before we get too far ahead, I'll introduce myself. My name is Logan Corey. I'm the Director of Admissions and Recruitment for the residential college. I'm also an alum of the RC, so I definitely am a big fan. I've been through the program myself, and I can say from firsthand that peer advisors were a huge support when I was a student here. I actually had some advice from peer advisor that helped direct me towards a mentor and a major that I eventually went with. So peer advisors are a huge support during orientation, so definitely lean on all of these students here. They are your resource for all those things you're wondering about, especially when we've had a more unusual year where you maybe couldn't come to campus or get to see things in person. These students here will all be your guides. So to get started, I'm going to go around and we'll have all of our peer advisors introduce themselves. But feel free at this point or anytime during the introductions to drop some questions in the Q&A. We'll start answering those after those introductions, but anything you're wondering about, any question is fine, feel free. So we'll start things off with introductions with Abby.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Abigail, but you can call me Abby if that makes you more comfortable. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm currently in my hometown of Canton, Michigan in the Metro Detroit area. My RC language was Spanish, and I'm a rising senior, so that's kind of scary, but looking forward to it. I'm double majoring in anthropology and psychology, and I'm hoping to get a food and the environment minor if I can pull off the credit load. I'm also a member of the African Student Association, and I've done some tutoring programs like PALMA for Hispanic students in the Ann Arbor area and the Michigan Mentorship Program in the local Ann Arbor Public Schools. Yeah.
Thank you. And we'll pass it over to Samantha.
Hi everyone, so I'm Samantha. I'm a rising junior in the RC. I'm also a transfer student, so last semester was my very first semester. It was all online. I'm located in New York. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I study biology and I'm pre-med, and I'm also in honors, so if you have any questions about like balancing those three with RC, honors, and pre-med, like I can answer any questions about that. I'm also involved in research here at U of M, and I'm in the RC forum, the Letters Forum. It's so fun. I so recommend it. So if you have any questions about forums too, I'd be happy to talk about that. And yeah, welcome.
Thank you. And I'll pass it over to Agnes.
Yeah, hello. Hi, I'm Agnes. I use she, her pronouns, and my hometown is South Lyon, Michigan, which is where I'm calling from. And my RC language was Spanish. And I'm going to be a junior in the fall, and my major is social theory and practice. And I'm involved in the Residence Hall Associations, or sort of the student government for the residence halls. So if you have any questions about student government on campus, feel free to ask me.
Thank you. And Mya.
Hi everyone, I'm Mya. I go by she, her pronouns. I'm originally from Clarkston, Michigan, which is like an hour northish of Ann Arbor. And then I'm a rising junior. I'm studying statistics. With a minor in French, which was my RC language, and then potentially a minor in science, technology, and society, which is an RC minor. And then on campus, I work at the university art museum, and I also work at the botanical gardens. And then I'm involved in like the university's intersectional feminist sorority, and I'm the advocacy chair for a nonprofit on campus that's like aimed to help bring menstrual products to people experiencing homelessness. So yeah.
Thank you. And that brings us to Jasmine.
Hi everyone, I'm Jasmine, she, her pronouns. I'm from Lansing, Michigan, but I'm currently in Ann Arbor right now. I'm a double major in social theory and practice in Spanish, so Spanish was my RC language. And I will be serving as the president of the Black Student Union in the fall, as well as an organization called Curl Talk, which focuses on natural hair. I do a lot, so I'm trying to think of what's important to say. That's all I could think of right now. But yeah, I'm excited to answer y'all's questions today.
Thank you, everybody. And as you can see, RC students tend to be very involved. They all have a lot going on, as they've shared. So like I said before, feel free to drop any of those questions in the Q&A. And this can be anything about you're wondering about classes, especially since these are peer advisors that help out with orientation. They can help you kind of figure out what your next step is as you're transitioning to your first fall at Michigan. So to kick things off, I just wanted to ask the question, what was your first semester like in the RC? Was it what you expected? Or what were some things you think would be helpful for incoming students to know about that time?
My older sister went through the RC, so she was the one who told me about it. And she said like it was like a really small community, and I came from a really small high school, so I thought it'd be nice to have an opportunity to, in a larger campus, be able to interact with a few people every day. And I also had been like afraid of going to college my whole life because I'm very dependent on the people around me, so it was kind of a big transition for me. But it went way better than I thought it would. I was worried about like making friends, and for the first 2 weeks, I was a little lonely, but after that, the people in my hall ended up being in some of my RC classes, or I would constantly meet some girls on the way to the bathroom or something, and we soon became like really close friends through these odd like circumstances, and I ended up having an overall pretty successful first semester.
And Samantha, would you share a little bit, since your first semester was totally virtual, just to hear about kind of the difference there?
Yeah, not gonna lie, it was so wacky, everything on Zoom as like your very first semester. But I actually had like such a good time. Like my RC class, I took a writing class, and that was my only RC class. It was just it was called the memoir. It was about writing memoirs. So that class, it was just 8 people. And it was such a stark contrast from my other classes, because like organic chemistry, let's say, has like 800 people. And then I was in a class with just same 8 people every other day. And I became really close to the professor I had and all the people in that class. And I had to kind of like put myself out there a little bit more, because like I wasn't on campus. But I ended up joining, like I said, like the forum, and then I was part of the RC Review, which is like a literary magazine. So I ended up meeting a lot of RC people through those clubs, and it was nice to kind of like hear from them about their experience, both like on campus and like with the RC. And they would talk about like other forums and like semester in Detroit and like some other programs. So I got to know a lot about Michigan just by like talking to people in those clubs and programs. So yeah.
I like hearing that there's these intentional spaces, these clubs where you can kind of get to know your community, but also just running into people in the bathroom also helps too, that there's these more casual spots. So there's a lot that will kind of be just baked into your experience, where naturally you can get to know some students. So we started to have some questions come in, and we have a couple coming in the chat, and we'll look at those first, but then let's try to throw those in the Q&A just so it's easier for us to sort through those. So the first one in the chat says, I know we're allowed to buy most brands of technology, but was wondering if it was easier if Mac or Windows use at U of M. And also if you have thoughts on tablets versus computers. So does anyone want to weigh in and kind of share their thoughts on this one?
As far as being an LSA student, I think you can use either in terms of Mac and Windows. I know some other schools at the university have their own requirements, but in LSA, there's really no requirements, and there's a lot of computers on campus too. And so there's like a handful of things that there's a virtual desktop you can use. If you have a Mac and it can't run certain programs, there's a virtual desktop you can go to and run any program that run on a Windows machine. So I would say you're good with either. I think there are some programs that require having a laptop and not a tablet, like some of the software like used in chemistry. I don't think you'd be able to run on a tablet. But there are also a lot of computers on campus. So, but you'd likely want a laptop if you can have one. And there's ways that the university can help with that too. So I don't know if anyone has experience with those programs.
I don't have much experience with programs either, but as someone who was using a Mac and is now using Windows because I dropped my Mac off the top of my bunk bed, it's really, I'm in the LSA program as well, and there's virtually no difference, except now I can flip my computer to take notes on the screen instead of having to write on a piece of paper if I want to jot something down. But like I took a stats class and I was able to run programs on my Mac. So it really doesn't matter.
And let's see, for our next one that's in the chat is for the SDP gals. What are you doing with that major, and or what is your favorite class? So for those that are involved in social theory and practice, can you tell a little bit more about your focus in it? So for those who don't know, this is a more interdisciplinary major. You can really specialize it and focus it for what you're working on. So 2 students doing that major aren't necessarily going down the same paths. So for who would ever like to start with that?
I can go ahead and start. So yeah, I'm an STP major. And so for my major, I kind of describe it as like a mix between like criminal justice, urban studies, and like public policy a bit. I'm a pre-law route, and we don't have pre-law at U of M as a whole. That's why I majored in STP, because I didn't know exactly what major, like sociology, poli sci, that I wanted to go into specifically. So I'm kind of mixing all of those together. So I've been taking a lot of classes in the past couple of years about kind of like mass incarceration, criminalization, prison abolition, things like that, to kind of shape my major. And I would say just my favorite class so far within that I actually am taking right now is a women's studies class about gender, race, and mass incarceration. And it looks at it from like a prison abolition standpoint. And I've really, really enjoyed that class.
Yeah, I'm a little less far along in my journey in STP. I declared in the winter of this year. And so my focus is kind of like mental health within American society. So I'm taking classes in the psych department, as well as in history classes, American culture classes. And I haven't taken this class yet, but I'm really excited to take it. And it's a women and gender studies class, and it's like a feminist practice of oral history, because oral history is also something I'm really interested. And in STP, you get to kind of explore some different research methods. Then you might get to kind of explore different research methods, how you want to apply them. So I'm really excited to take that class and learn more about it.
So definitely two very different approaches to STP, but even the classes you're mentioning, you're showing that there's this wide range of topics you can pull into it to really personalize for yourself, which is very cool to see. And for students that do STP at the end of their senior year, they also present a thesis. So you get to see all the work that these students have been working on and can kind of see the full breadth of options that are out there too. We have a question in the chat. Is the RC workload harder than the typical LSA workload? So especially for those of you that might be doing LSA majors, might be easier to compare for someone doing RC majors. But for all the students here, you take a mixture of RC and LSA classes. So if anyone would like to kind of comment on RC versus LSA workload.
I can comment on it. I mean, it's kind of hard saying like, oh, is this harder or is it like easier kind of things. It's a lot more like, I think the difference that I've noticed in like doing like my major through LSA and then my additional courses through like the RC is that the RC, you always have a more personal connection to your peers and your professors. So not so much that it's harder, but like you will have, I think, easier opportunity to talk to people if you are struggling. Whereas LSA, it's a lot more like, you're gonna have to put it on your own time and you're gonna have to go into office hours and things like that. Whereas like RC, you kind of just like already befriend your professors and like you just have that kind of like close connection with them. So when you struggle, it's easier, not so much that like you're going to struggle more in one or the other.
Yeah, I would also say in my experience, like with my RC class, I realized that our professor, since it was like a smaller class, she was very focused on like what we needed, like what resources we needed and like connecting us with those resources. And she also like, if people were having like a rough week, she would be like very understanding and accommodating to what our needs were as students. Whereas like in a larger class, it might be harder to voice your concerns to the teacher and get that like individualized approach. So I would say, I don't want to say like it's easier, but like it feels like more comfortable sometimes in an RC class to like speak up when you're having a hard time, and that could make your transition into that class run like smoother than maybe some other larger classes.
So definitely saw a lot of head nods of agreement on that one. And for those RC classes too, you typically would call your instructors by their first names. So there's a little bit of a difference of approach kind of in even how you connect with your instructors. So like how Mya said, even like befriending your instructors, there's just a different level of comfort that goes on as well. We also have a question in the chat. What's your advice for balancing pre-med and the RC? So I think especially some of those really rigorous kind of paths, even like Jasmine was sharing about pre-law. So what's some advice for balancing those and the RC curriculum?
I forgot to mention this, but I'm also kind of on a pre-health track. I really like having the variety. I found that it made my life feel more balanced to have humanities and hard sciences at the same time and social sciences, and it put it all in context in a much better way. And you learn a lot of things in the RC that I think really help you kind of understand like the broader context of health in the world, which I think sounds kind of vague, but it's helpful to, when you're thinking about those applications and some of the more interpersonal skills that come with that. And the other advice I'd have is I really like the pre-med advising at U of M, and I've had a really good experience with that. So go early and often to that kind of thing. And don't be afraid to make your own path on being pre-med. There's no one way to be a pre-med, and there's really no right or wrong way, and you don't have to do it like somebody else is doing it.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, because like with honors, pre-med, and RC, like I was really confused about what advisor to go to. Like I was kind of floundering for like the first few weeks, and it was good that my honors advisor happened to be a pre-med advisor. Her name is Stephanie. If you see her, like she's amazing. But just like finding like one or two people who are advisors who really understand your unique like interests and your studies and your path, so that you don't maybe have to like keep explaining yourself to other people. Like if you just have like maybe one or two people who like really know what you're interested in, then like they can kind of direct you towards what requirements you need to fulfill. And like anyone can do that, but like sometimes it's just nice to have like one person who is really like with you when you're planning your schedule. I would also say, like with pre-med, it doesn't hurt to choose a major or a minor, something that like fulfills many of the same requirements as pre-med. So like I'm biology, health, and society, which is like kind of in between. It's not like as hard science as molecular cellular, but it's not like public health either. It's kind of like that in between. And that has a lot of requirements that overlap with pre-med. So it's like you don't have to completely like take a bunch of different requirements, because there's a lot of like double dipping. And then finally, like being in like clubs and organizations that like are part of the RC, if you want to like get more of that, if you feel like a lot of your classes are STEM, or like on the other hand, if you feel like you're in taking a lot of RC classes and always around RC people, you might want to join like a science organization. It's like really like up, like Agnes said, like up to like what you want to do and what you want your path to look like.
Thank you. So there's a lot of personalization that kind of goes on with it, and there's a lot of support. So even mentioning the multiple advisors that are out there, and that's one of the nice things about being in the RC at Michigan. You still have those resources of that large school, so you can still go to that pre-med advice, and you can still get that support, and then also have that connection you have already established in the RC. You don't have to pick between one or the other. And we've got a question in the chat. Sorry if this appears like in the Q&A. Sorry if this appears like a really strange question. All good, no strange questions, you're fine. But with the RC schedule typically having around 3 classes because of the intensity of the language requirement, how does that work and reflect on RC students who are prospectively looking to apply for graduate and professional school programs? So it sounds like you're talking a little bit about when you're in the intensive language program. And since the intensive languages in the RC are either 8 or 10 credits, typically you'd only be taking 3 courses in that term. So it's pretty common for your first semester at Michigan to have an 8-credit language course in the RC, a 4-credit first-year writing seminar, and then 1 additional course. But one way to think about it, the language course, since it's 8 credits, it's essentially 2 language courses pushed together into 1. So you're still taking a pretty full course load. But I know we have some rising seniors on the call, so no pressure if you haven't started to look at the full grad school process yet. But how does some of this kind of RC kind of experience or taking 3 courses, does that impact kind of how you're thinking about your transcript or applications or anything like that?
I can speak on this because I'm looking into applying to law schools. And I would say that I've always looked at it as more of a credit thing rather than a class thing. And even then, like I don't think that, when you're applying to a grad school, a law school, they're gonna like state on your transcript and be like, you only took 12 credits this one semester, which means that you're not as strong of an applicant. No, I think honestly, when it comes to even taking a course load, what's best for you, your schedule, your mental health, I think is what should always be prioritized no matter what. Because when they're looking at those applications, they're not going to penalize you because you might have taken a smaller course load one semester. Because for example, within my senior year, I'm going to be a part-time student my second semester because I fulfilled all my other requirements. So they're not going to penalize me because I'm part-time. It's just because of how my like course load and things worked out. And you don't always have to be taking a super duper large, like 17, 18 credit course load every semester. So don't worry about that at all.
On the other side of that, I haven't started looking at grad schools yet. So Jasmine, thank you for taking that part. But for your course load for your first semester, I kind of went the opposite direction, and I ended up taking 18 credits with the Europe undergraduate research opportunities program thing, and I was working a job. So it was a lot, but I managed. Like, it's all about knowing yourself and your time management and task management abilities. So if you think you can do it, it's very possible that you can, but you should be able to understand your limits and maybe how much free time you want to have in your first semester as you go through that adjustment period. So just like trust yourself there, I think. And if you do want to take the 18 credits like I did, you can, and you can still have a social life and free time. But if you want to take it slow, that's totally valid. And then you can explore more options that way.
I like the advice of kind of trusting yourself and what's a good fit for you. And also on that too, there is the option if you try that higher course load, you can withdraw from courses. And especially during your first year, the first time you do that, there's no penalty. So you can really go ahead and explore those courses without getting that concern of a W on your transcript. So that's something that's good to keep in mind. And also talk to your advisors about, talk to mentors about if you have those on campus as well. So we have a question that came into the chat. What do you know about the single dorms in the RC, like the size and the setup? And would I be able to bring more furniture since I'm alone, so not having a roommate? So for those who have kind of lived on campus experience, did anyone have a single versus a double? And even just some advice about, you definitely don't need to bring this, leave it at home and make sure you bring this. It was a great thing to have.
I lived in both a double and a single. I lived in a double my freshman year, lived in a single my sophomore year because I was an RA. Technically, you do not have much more room because a single is kind of just a double split in half. So just keep that in mind, because if you're looking like online, I know there's some pictures of East Quads, like rooms and things that are normally doubles. So just think about a little, like maybe a little bit more than half of that would be your single. And thinking about things to bring, things not to bring. My biggest thing was like a refrigerator and a microwave, but if you have a roommate, you and your roommate both do not need to bring a refrigerator and a microwave unless you really, really want to. But I think it just takes up space that you don't necessarily need to take up. That's my own personal experience. If everyone else has, when it comes to things to bring, that's my thoughts on that. But anyone else can, of course. Oh, also, I was talking to someone earlier about this. Just remember, all the things you bring and you set up, they have to leave at some point. So just think about like yes, move out is not till a year after that, but like think about like moving out. All things you have to take with you as well. Can I bring these things actually back home with me? Do I need to buy a storage unit for these things? So think about that as well when you are moving in.
This may be like a little silly, but the number one thing you probably should not bring is a coffee maker. I feel like a lot of people think that they need one. I drink coffee every single day. I think I've had like 4 cups a day. I do not need a coffee maker. You don't need a coffee maker. It's just such a hassle to like go get the water and stuff. And like I last year had a coffee maker and I brought it home, and this year I got a coffee maker and I brought it home. So don't worry about the coffee maker.
I appreciate the trial and error of that, trying to figure out what would work well. And let's see, we've got a question that came in through the chat. How many semesters of the language is required? I saw somewhere that there was a readings course that would be taken after intensive 1 and 2 courses. So is that 3rd semester required as well? So would anyone like to share or answer a little bit more about language requirement?
I can go ahead. So yes, that readings course is required. So how it works is depending on if you test into intensive 1 or intensive 2, you take 3 semesters or 2 semesters. So let's say you're starting with this intensive 1, you would take your first semester of intensive 1, then you move into intensive 2, and then you would take your proficiency exam is the important part though. You take your proficiency exam, and then if you go ahead and if you pass your proficiency exam, you then take readings. If you don't pass your proficiency exam, you have to take a review class first, and then take proficiency again, and then take readings. So it also just depends on how proficiency exam goes as well when it comes to how many semesters are put into it. And I will say one thing I've like noticed that's a trend within the RC is normally people either turn their RC language into a major or minor. So that's also an option too. So then there's classes after that, of course, but just for the actual program itself, it's usually 3 semesters as a whole.
Also, it's not, there's like, your teachers will talk to you about where you're at and how you're doing in your classes too. So it's not gonna like, nothing's gonna like come out of the blue or be a surprise. I'll be perfectly honest, I did not pass proficiency the first time I took it. I got permission to take my readings and then was deemed that I had built enough proficiency to pass after taking readings, which is also a thing that happens. So there's like, it's not like you'll know like where you're at and what you need to do, and like there's a lot of support for languages too. So you'll be in the right spot. Like your professors will make sure you're in the right spot.
Yeah, and then another thing too with the readings, like there usually is, I was in French, and so there's 2 options, but there's usually multiple options, and they're like more interesting topics, I guess. So like the intense, like the actual language ones, like those 8 credit ones, those are more just like you're learning grammar and stuff, whereas the readings is like a topic that usually the professor is genuinely interested in. So like my first one was about like how friendship is like a type of love, and like the ideas of like where friends come from culturally. Which was super interesting and like something that I could actually just like apply to my life. And then because I am minoring, it did count for part of my minor. And I actually chose to like do another readings course instead of just doing an LSA French course because I enjoyed them so much. And I was able to do one that was like migrant literature in Quebec, which was also really interesting to learn about. And yeah, and that's like different than the intensive kind of style.
And one question too on the topic while we're kind of going through languages a little bit. So I know we've talked, there's the class time, there's readings, there's proficiency exam. We haven't touched too much on what coffee hours or lunch tables are like, kind of those times outside. So if anyone would like to share about that, but also, did you find you had support with your RC peers for practicing or studying? So what did that look like? How did you kind of work through your language with your other RC friends?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I was kind of irritated at the thought of coffee hours at first because, like I said, I was taking 18 credits and working, and I was like, and do you want me to spend my lunch, like, or my free time, in a class activity? But that's actually where I reinforced some of the tentative, like, acquaintances that I'd made. Like, I found, like, oh, hey, I know you. You live, like, 3 doors down. Like, that's where a lot of really solid friendships are made. And it is genuinely good practice. And, like, even now, I finished my RC language course thing in my sophomore year. So it's been a while, but one of my friends that I met in the RC, and we were both in the language program, she still talks to me in Spanish. And that's what keeps my language proficiency going, because my speaking Spanish is horrible, but like I can understand very well because of her. So like it doesn't sound very appealing at first, but it is a good way to make friends, and you're sitting with the teachers as well. So I know one of you asked something about like in the Q&A, it's a later question about being able to make those friendships with your professors. And it's moments like that where you can get to know them one-on-one in these like 8-seat tables and like know them as people and know about their interests during these like lunch hours and coffee time tables or whatever they're called.
Yeah, I have to like absolutely second that. The lunch table is like, especially when you're coming in, like you don't really know anyone, it like gives you a place to sit and eat and like people to talk to. And like definitely like my closest friends, I like my roommates now, like we all kind of like met because we were like, oh, every single day we have to chat. So like we might as well like get to know each other. And I also think like it is a really good bonder for like the professors and stuff, because a lot of times too, it's randomized. So like, even if you're trying to run from the professors, you're going to end up sitting with them and talking to them. And they do like, they get to know you and they really care. Like I remember I sat with a professor at like the end of the year and she asked me about something that I had not like talked to her about since like September. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, whoa, that's crazy that like we chat and like they, they read your papers, they see your stuff. So like, you do have like some pretty good conversations and like get to know your peers and your professors. And like, it's kind of ends up being more of like something you actually look forward to rather than like another like chore to do.
And just to add on to that as well, I think that talking to professors at lunch tables and coffee hours helps a little bit with the proficiency as well, because you have the like interview part of it where you have to speak to them. And so like in my experience, some of my friends' experience, the professors we would talk to a little bit more, like we come to the interview time, like, oh, I remember you bringing this up in coffee hours or like lunch tables. This is what our interview is going to be about today. Like, so just talk about yourself and this thing you've already talked about before. So I think that really helps a little bit too, where it's like they kind of know what you're interested in, but you also get to learn what they like to talk about a little bit too. So it's a little bit easier than navigating like those final interviews as well.
I like this advice of kind of getting to know your instructor a little bit better before you have the big exam later on too. And I know we have a couple questions that came up about kind of student life and clubs. I know information was shared a little bit earlier about the RC review, and someone asked, are there any requirements to join?
So the short answer is no, there's no requirements. I actually joined 3 weeks before finals week because like I was really stressed. I didn't even know the RC review was a thing. Because like I'm living in my little hole in New York, like I had no idea. But instead of putting like our names on like the magazine, they had us choose a sandwich that represents us. Everyone in the club is so cool, but I chose so like I wasn't expecting them to even like include me in the book because I joined so late, but they were so nice about it and they even like put my sandwich in there, so I just thought that was really cool. Oh, also I meant to mention this before, but I took a non-RC language. I took Italian, so if anyone has any questions about taking a language that's not in the RC, I can answer to that.
And if anyone wants to add two more about RC Review, feel free as well. But we also have a question about forums. When can I start joining RC forums and other clubs? And is there a limit to how many forums I can do at once? If I'm opting to have forums count for credits, will it appear on my transcript? And just for some background on that too, you can actually join forums similar to joining an independent study. So you can get academic credit for those. And you can only do one forum for credit at a time. So you can join multiple during a semester, but only one will count for credit. So if anyone wants to kind of jump in and answer more of those forum questions, feel free.
So I did a forum my freshman year and took it for credit as a fall, and it was a really fun way to like have an extra credit and get to know people. And I did like a health and wellness forum, so we did like dancing and stuff, so it's a fun way to get moving too. Yeah, so I took that one for credit, and then I think you can take throughout your entire time in the RC like 2 and get credit for them at different semesters. And then at once, like I went to a bunch of different forum meetings, like just with friends or like just to check them out. Like you can I mean, all the forums I went to, you can pretty much go to any forum anytime to check it out, and just to do what they're doing that day, to learn about what they're learning about. And yeah, they do. So when they show up on your transcript, it'll show up as like an independent study, and it's a credit or no credit. So there's like 3 types of grading. There's like, you're going to get a letter grade, pass, fail, and then credit, no credit. So it'll just, you either get credit if you go enough, or you don't get credit if you don't go enough. And there'll be a way to, like, you opt in to take it on your transcript. You don't have to. You could just be a part of it and go every week and not have it on your transcript. So it's kind of up to you what you want to do with it.
Yeah, just to ask that, because I never took one for credit, but I went to a lot of the feminist forums, just kind of go and kind of see what it was about. And forums change from semester to semester sometimes, just because like students are the ones leading these. So like if a student brings an idea to our student coordinator, like, hey, I really want to do this, and you create into a forum, it might change. So something to look out for in the fall if you are interested in forums, called Festa Forum, where all of the forums for that semester, kind of like a tabling event, which is in the East Quad. So it's very convenient to go to. It's just downstairs in the basement. And like they have like all of their tables set up where you can learn more about each forum. And then you can also sign up for the forums there too, if you like. But even if you aren't able to go to Festa Forum, there will be emails sent out where you can sign up for them still. So definitely look for Festa Forum if you're interested.
Yeah, another good thing too with like the forums, I've done 2 for credit. I did Eco Forum freshman year, and then I did Film Forum last fall. And it is a really helpful way to also like kind of cut down or like to get at the RC requirements, just because like with my major being LSA and then just my minors also not having a lot of RC overlap, it was a good way to also make sure that I was like managing the RC requirements to graduate without putting much additional work and having way more fun than I would probably like in, you know, some other mini course or 1 credit course.
And since so many of you are part of non-RC orgs too, I'll also give a shout out for Festifall, which is kind of like the big campus-wide version of Festiforum, where you can connect with all those other orgs that all the peer advisors have mentioned here today. So that way you can kind of go around. It's usually a little chaotic all over the diag. And the one advice I always give is don't sign up for every email list. That's what I did when I was a first-year student. And the next day I had hundreds of emails from orgs I didn't remember signing up for. So just be a little selective, get the information, go to mass meetings, but don't sign up for every email group. And we had a question that came in through the chat. How common is it for RC students to join fraternities and sororities? So would anyone like to share a little bit more about that?
I guess I can, because I'm in a sorority. I'm not in Panhell, but it does seem like it's somewhat common for people to also do like the Panhellenic or the Greek ones. My sorority is more of like, kind of like a org, I guess. It's more chillax. There's like lower dues, there's much lower requirements, which was nice, but I don't think I've ever heard a problem with like the RC being a reason why you don't. And also because it is right next to Hill Street, a lot of people end up knowing people who are in Greek life or things like that because they're just like around. And yeah, Hill Street's where all the fraternities and sororities, or most of them are. But yeah, so I've not like really heard anything of like them having any issue on each other. And it does seem like there's a pretty active group in East Quad that like was part of like when Rush was happening and things like that. And I've had no problem with like managing both.
Yeah, so I don't know if just so Rush is in the winter at U of M, so you get some time to kind of figure out like what you want to do in college and like figure it out, and then Rush in the winter. So you have some time to kind of figure it out and like see what you might want to do, and like talk to people in sororities. And there's a lot of people in the RC who are in Greek life, all different, you know, all the different councils of Greek life. So yeah. And there's also people who live in East Quad who aren't in the RC. So they might be involved in different things too, outside of the RC. So you can kind of talk to them too and see what everybody else is doing.
This is kind of a good point to also just check in that there's not one typical RC student. There's a lot of different interests or kind of a micro view of the university. So you'll find a lot of different majors, passions, org involvement, sorting fraternity life, all that. You'll kind of see like a small version of that here in the RC. So we had one question on the chat. I was going to answer quick since this one I think is just a little more technical, but it is someone wanted to know if you can triple minor. And the answer is yes, it is possible to add on multiple minors and multiple majors. A lot of that will come down to working with your advisor. So kind of figuring out what are those courses that can overlap, what can't overlap. I always say that if you have things that are in a similar field, when you're adding multiple things, it can be a little easier, but your advisor is the best one to kind of help you through that. Does anyone want to add anything on that one? Okay, I will say every year we have one student who graduates with a triple major or either a major and triple minor. So there was at least one student every year that goes that route. Try out some courses in those minors before you fully commit. Just give it a shot. Talk to your advisor. And then we have a question here. How many RC classes versus LSA classes do you take?
It tends to be more RC heavy in your first 2 years, I think, because you don't really know what you want to do major wise. So you're just working on knocking out your RC credit requirements, especially the language requirement. But yeah, then around your like sophomore year, once you finish like your first year writing requirement, your language requirement, that's when I did a lot more major exploration and I took more just general LSA courses. But I was still taking at least like one or two a semester my freshman year as well. It's so like I said, like your freshman year is really just about exploration. And a good way to do that is through getting your LSA and your RC requirements done. Like you're getting your humanities credit out of the way or something like that. So it's, again, personalization. It's about what you want to do. But yeah, it tends to be more LSA heavy towards the end of your career and more RC heavy in the beginning of your academic career.
I think it's also helpful you didn't give one number because it's personalized. It varies by student too. And let's see. How would you recommend getting comfortable becoming more of a friend with a teacher? And we talked about this a little bit before, but if you come from a very big school where that was not really a thing. So do you have any tips kind of for first getting to know your RC instructors, kind of getting comfortable with those conversations? Coffee hours and lunch tables are a great way, but maybe for those non-language instructors, what were some tips?
So my RC instructor in the RC class I took, it was not a language course, it was a writing course. And I had emailed her like as I was transferring and I was like, oh, I'm new, like, can I join the class? Because like it was full. So I reached out to her and she like immediately started like asking me questions like, oh, where are you from? What are you interested in? And I just thought that like that was really cool. So you can either like email them or like I've heard from like transfer groups that like if you go to office hours in the first week of class, just to introduce yourself, because like you're going to have to talk to your professors one-on-one at some point in the semester anyway. So like if you go in the first week when you don't really have any sort of like question, there's no pressure. You can just be like, hi, my name is Samantha. And like, I'm looking forward to taking this course, or like, what do you recommend to succeed in this course? Then like that like opens the door for conversation and kind of like breaks the ice so that you feel like more comfortable reaching out to them via email or in person like in the future.
I'm sorry, I know I just spoke, but even though I came from like a small high school, it was like a very waspy, like formal setting. So I was close with my teachers, but it was very much do not call them by their first name, always attach a title kind of thing. And so when I went to the RC and you have to call your teachers by their first name, at first I was so uncomfortable. I was like, I can't call an adult by their first name because I was I 17, I think, when I started my freshman year? Yeah, I wasn't even an adult yet. And I was like, I'm not your peer. But I tried the whole Professor Espinosa with Christian, and he was like, just call me Christian, like it's okay. So they're very proactive about being friends with you in the RC, and like the whole name thing really helps because it kind of makes, even though you don't realize it, you sort of feel like a peer if you call someone by their first name. And then this is kind of embarrassing, but even for my general like 300-person classes, I used to introduce myself to the professor at the beginning of every semester because I'm chronically afraid of office hours, so I never go. So I was like, my only chance to meet you is now. So I would go up and talk to them, just be like, hi, this is who I am. I'm excited to take this class, and I hope I learn a lot or something. And then I found that like 2 months into the class, when it was an opportunity to raise my hand, the professor called me out by name. So some of them like memorize names and faces at the beginning of the semester, and some of them don't. But like if you're just proactive about it, for the most part, they'll be just as proactive. Like they want to be friends with you too.
Yeah, just really quickly, you might have graduate student instructors too, and a lot of them are really good to talk to. I've had like really good friendships with my graduate student instructors, because they also like, it's sometimes their first time teaching, so they want to be successful and they want people to answer their questions. So be willing to put yourself out there and answer their questions and talk to them. And a lot of them, like sometimes they'll even ask you like, how am I doing teaching this? Like, because they might have never taught a class before. And they also are really good people to talk to about grad school because they're in grad school. And if you ask them about their research that they're doing and what they're really passionate about, they'll often tell you a lot about it. Like my math GSI told a lot of like people would go to his office hours and then he'd just talk, like they'd ask him about his research and he'd like talk about his like really intense research. So I would recommend talking to your GSIs too, because they like to talk about what they do as well.
I like kind of like the scarification. I can't think of the word, but just making everything seem a little bit more approachable. I think that's really great. And since all of you are peer advisors, this question is for you. How do peer advisors help in the process of being in the RC?
I can go. I think to start, peer advisors want to here to help with classes and things. But I think that what the really nice part was that like they're kind of some of the first faces you see at the RC, especially when we're going to be in person in the fall. Like you can be like, oh, I remember Jasmine, or I remember Abigail from like, that was my peer advisor over the summer. And of course, you're always able to walk up to us, talk to us. Like it's one already a familiar face, on campus. Because I remember when I did my registration, one of my providers, her name was Brittany. And so I think I literally saw Brittany all the time after that when I came to campus in the fall. And she was just a very welcoming person to talk to. And then also I think that because, we're a couple of years and we have a little bit more knowledge about RC, U of M, so like we're kind of, you can say this mentors a little bit too, kind of ask those questions, whether it be like things about social life on campus, academics, like we, for the most part, as a like whole, have experience in most different things at U of M. So I think definitely look at peer advisors beyond orientation, and like even when you're here in the fall, as the people who are there to help you as well.
So you've got a pretty broad support network. So definitely don't feel afraid to approach these peer advisors when you see them, like Jasmine was saying. And we've got a question in the chat. Do you happen to know how long of a walk it is from one side of campus to the other?
What is considered the end of campus can get a little confusing. I would say if we're talking about classes alone, so I'd say like the farthest you're normally going to walk for like an LSA class is the MLB. So from East Quad to the MLB, you can say 10 minutes, But if you're really determined, you can make it there in 7, because I did it my entire freshman year. But I would say from side, I would say 15 minutes, 15-ish minutes from side to side, which you can normally make it in. But if you were determined, you can definitely cut that time down.
Yeah, like for me, I'm a slow walker. So if I'm going at an average pace, I'll get to the MLB at like 15 minutes, maybe 12 if I'm walking with a friend. And I have made it in like 6 minutes for a class once. I was really booking it. But remember that Michigan, we get snow. So don't bet on it. Like, so it's possible, but don't bet on it, because I have seen people wipe out on their way to class in the middle of winter. So yeah, Agnes, apparently, maybe it was you, who knows, but it's possible, but be careful.
Don't be afraid to take the bus either. That's my advice. The buses they have heat, so in the winter, really nice. And there's a bus stop at East Quad, and the buses are super easy. They're all the blue buses you hop on. You don't have to show your M card or anything to get on a blue bus. It is so easy. Don't be afraid of taking the bus, because it'll make your life so much easier.
I realize we're talking mostly about Central Campus, but there's a whole nother area of campus, North Campus, where you would need to take a bus to. So it is possible to walk there. That's quite a long walk. That's kind of, if you're thinking about maybe that's your exercise for the day. But I would say plan on taking a bus if you're going to North Campus. And the buses run all over campus, like Agnes was saying. And they are typically on about a 10-minute schedule, but Michigan snow, be aware, things may shift a little bit. So there's an app you can download and keep an eye on the buses for that too. And our next question is honest opinions on East Quad dorms.
I've heard a lot of things, because I'm on the executive board for the Residence Hall Association, so I've heard a lot about different dorms. To be perfectly honest, East Quad are some of the nicer dorms. East Quad is pretty recently renovated. I think it was renovated in 2012. And so you have your own thermostat. Like literally you have AC, which some of the dorms do not have air conditioning, which when you show up in August is not always the most fun. And the bathrooms are super nice in East Quad. Overall, I think it's like, from what I've seen, other dorms, it's up there with some of the nicest dorms on campus. And it's recently renovated. Not that the other dorms aren't nice, but East Quad is definitely a nice place to live.
I second that in every way possible. I love East Quad. I would say, even when it comes to like renovated, I would say West Quad is like similar looking when it comes to renovations, but West Quad does not have a dining hall. So you have to walk somewhere else to go eat. East Quad has everything you could possibly think of and need, especially as an RC student, because your classes are there, your advisors are there, you can eat there. We have classrooms all throughout East Quad. So like you can reserve a classroom and study there. Even outside of the classroom, there are just so many different study spots there. Java Blue, you will learn to come to love. It's a little cafe, which has its own little like seating area so you can study at. But Java Blue like sells different types of food, and it's open till like 1 a.m. So if you're up late doing work and you need coffee, you can go to Java Blue. Like I love East Quad. I was RA in East Quad. I think that y'all are very lucky being placed in East Quad. So just be thankful.
I like the appreciation for East Quad. And let's see, we had a question here that I think I might be able to answer quick for this one. I saw there's something about storage for RC residents in the basement. Is this true, and what would it entail? There's not storage in the basement for East Quad residents. Sometimes we get questions about this for bikes and things like that. Unfortunately, there is not bike storage. There are bike racks around where you can lock up your bike around East Quad, but there isn't an actual additional storage space for students in the basement, which is why it's another good thing, like it was shared, to think about what you move into your dorm room, you'll have to move out. So you'll all be responsible for that within your space. And then we have a question. I remember hearing about a program at the RC where you could volunteer at the U of M hospital for 1 credit hour. Is that still happening? Has anyone taken this course or volunteered through that? Okay, I can share a little bit. This is typically with one of our instructors, Jeff Evans, who has a course for hospital volunteering. And I will say that right now things are a little tricky with COVID, so I'm not sure the current status of that course. But for any questions, you can reach out directly to him. So RC instructors are very approachable, so you can kind of find out what's the status, when's the plan for this course to get restarted if it's not going on right now. And if you have any questions about emails, you can also reach out to me, and I'm welcome to connect you. So if you're not sure you're comfortable yet making that first approach to email the instructor, I can CC you on a message. Feel free to reach out to me. And then what are some student government opportunities in the RC and on campus in general?
So I can speak a little bit to this. So I'm not involved in it, but there is an RC student union, which is sort of an RC type of student government that you can be a part of. And that was something that usually, if I'm correct, they're usually at like Festiforum in the fall. So that's like a place you can check out the RC Student Union. And then other student government opportunities you can be involved in as an RC student would be, so my own student government that I'm part of is just the Residence Hall Association, which is there'll be a council in your dorm and then a university-wide council that has representatives from each dorm. And then the LSA Student Government, which is a student government for the College of LSA. And you can run to be a representative in the winter. That would be like for your sophomore year. And then, but you can also like apply to be on committees. And there's a ton, like if you go to the LSA, if you just look up like LSA Student Government, there's like a lot of committees they run, and they'll also be at Festival. And then there's Central Student Government, which is a student government for the entire university, including all the graduate programs, and also has elections in the winter term, but also has a bunch of committees, and you can be an intern for Central Student Government as a freshman. And that means you intern for like some of the executive committee. And you might do things like to them, and you'll learn about what they do. So that's like that's like kind of the student government opportunities, but there's also a lot of other ways to like make change on campus. Things like being a Planet Blue student leader is another thing you can apply to do. There's advisory boards you can apply to be on. So those are like some different ways to get involved on a lot of different levels with that. I don't know if anyone else has experience to add.
I just wanted to add real quick for LSA Student Government, they actually on a semester basis have appointed representatives. So I was an appointed representative. So you can actually join LSA Student Government your freshman year, but in the second semester. So that would be like an application process. They'll interview you and then you're appointed. So that's another way if you want to get involved a little bit earlier than sophomore year. That's one way too.
So another great way to keep in mind, peer advisors are a resource to kind of think about all these different options from their own experience. So we have a couple questions about language I'm going to kind of group together. So the first one are, what are the 5 RC languages offered? And I can answer that one quick. We have Spanish, French, Russian, German, and Japanese. And the RC also offers American Sign Language, ASL, that is not an intensive language. It's a different structure for the course, and that's why that course doesn't fulfill the RC's intensive requirement. But there are several RC students who complete their intensive language or LSA language to the same kind of level and then jump into ASL. So it's still an option for you as well. And then we had a question, is the review class an intensive class? So I think this is asking about if you don't pass proficiency and you get into that review course, is that one intensive? And I don't think anyone here mentioned they went into that course. Is that right? So I can share for that one kind of the difference. So for the intensives, they're pass-fail. So they're not graded in a typical way. For the review class, it is graded. It's 4 credits. So it's half the amount. So it's not intensive in that same structure. Usually by intensive, we mean that not graded, pass-fail course. It's 2 courses put together, and the review course is half that. So it's a little bit more focused and direct on where you need to improve and kind of get those strengths up. And then we had a question about for RC students who decide to dive into a completely new language upon arriving, which is a great opportunity. Definitely take that up if you have the interest. What is the transition like? I was able to go spy in my high school language course because I was a heritage speaker. I'm worried about what a full transition will be like in a new language. Does anyone want to share some response or feedback on that one?
So I took Spanish in high school, so that wasn't a new transition for me, but I was friends with a lot of people in the same, well, I am friends, the friendships didn't end, don't worry, with a lot of people in the same situation as you. Most of them actually ended up continuing with their heritage language. I like to kind of continue coasting, but I do know a few who did decide to start an entirely new language. And some people had to start in like, there's like a very basic intro course also offered through the RC that you can take if you're really scared about starting with intensive, or if like you are in intensive and you're like, I can't do this, I need to start somewhere easier. So that is a possibility, but also intensive is designed to get you where you need to be by the end of the semester. So even though I don't have experience with it, from what I've seen through my peers, it's very possible for you to start new, start afresh, and still succeed. That's what the professors all want you to succeed. There's nobody who wants you to fail or to drop out of the class. So I think you can do it and you don't have to be worried.
Yeah, you definitely can do it. I know for I had taken French in high school and then just like continued on in French, but for people who had never taken French, they offer that like the winter semester is kind of for beginners or for like complete newbies. And then like the teachers, it's the same curriculum, and by the end of the semester they were in the same spot that I was at the end of like for my first semester, but it's just like a little bit easier of an approach, and they don't have that expectation of like you already know things. So there are like options like that where it's meant to like kind of help you be an actual beginner instead of like being put like in the same class as people who have taken like 4 or 5 years in high school.
Yeah, and like my roommate took Russian and she had taken no Russian previously. And like, especially like a language like Russian, most people don't have Russian at their high school. So it is designed for complete beginners. Um, and so like Spanish and French have, like Mya and Abigail mentioned, they have classes for complete beginners so that you aren't with people who have studied it before. But you'll almost like, I think for most of the other languages, like, yeah, they have like a way that you won't be with people who like are a whole nother level than you.
Kind of continuing on some of our language questions, we have a couple questions about study abroad. And I know COVID really disrupted a lot of students' plans for study abroad. So has anyone had the opportunity to study abroad? So Jasmine, you have. So.
Yes, I have before. So I've done a lot, y'all. I know you're probably like, this girl keeps on talking. But I studied abroad after my freshman year through a program called GIEU, and it's more service-based projects. So I went to Kilimanjaro, Tanzania for a month, where I did a lot there. My main project, I worked with students and taught an advanced English class where I kind of taught, it was more about like how to get like jobs and things. So working on how to create resumes, CVs, cover letters, what an interviewing process is like, was what their version of like advanced English was like. So that's what I did most of my time there. I think it was an amazing experience. I think especially if you don't fully know like what exactly you want to like do when you study abroad, looking to the GIEU program specifically, or GCC, either of those two, and they're all through CGIS. I don't know what CGIS stands for right now, but CGIS is the study abroad department on campus, specifically for LSNA. So GIEU or GCC, and they're more like 1 month, 2 month programs max, where you're kind of going and doing service in different places. And they have a bunch of different options, whether it be places in Africa, Asia, South America, Europe. And then for GIEU, one good thing about that was if you're Pell Grant eligible, they paid for your entire trip. So that was really nice that I got to go to study abroad completely for free, which was a great experience. And even if you aren't Pell Grant eligible, the university still provides pretty good financial aid and support to study abroad. And then last year I went through the full process to study abroad again, and it got canceled because of COVID. So I was actually supposed to study abroad in Madrid last summer for my Spanish major, because I would have gotten 6 of my credits out of the way for my major while studying abroad there. And so and I was supposed to be doing it at a university. So for programs like that, they're like at universities, there's a little bit more you have to go through because you have to kind of like register through that university. And there's some outside organizations that are involved outside of the university that you kind of are in contact with. But I think there's a bunch of CGIS advisors who help you step by step through all these processes, help you kind of plan out financial aid, how much you probably will get from the university, if you need to kind of plan for anything on your own. So I definitely say look into study abroad, amazing experiences. So if you were able to, and if COVID lets that happen, I would say definitely look into that.
Yeah, and a small addition, not on study abroad, because unfortunately I've been through COVID, but on like the RC language skills. Last year when I was doing intensive 2, I was able to go to Montreal and speak French, and like had no problem whatsoever, like holding myself and being in like areas where there was really little to no English. And I also do have a friend who's from France, who is like a childhood friend, and I reconnected with her. And we have like monthly conversations that are completely in French. And she always is like so impressed with my skills. She's like, I've never heard Americans that don't sound stupid, and you don't sound stupid. So like the actual like RC intensive level, like it is noticeably better than just doing like an LSA or just doing like a more casual course. Like you do have a really defined skill, and it is much higher than like other people's or other students.
I like hearing kind of the real world kind of experiences, but also that planned study abroad. And one thing I'll throw out here too is that, like Jasmine was saying, for study abroad, all those options at Michigan are available to you. So you're not restricted to some. Occasionally, RC instructors are kind of the leader on a trip, but you're not restricted to those. That's a smaller number than overall at Michigan. But we do have a scholarship exclusive for RC students doing study abroad or study away, which is the Brown Fund. So that can help offset some of those costs as well. And we had a question about language I was going to throw over to Samantha. So this is about, for non-RC intensive languages, do you have language lunch tables? So this student is planning to take Mandarin Chinese and is wondering what opportunities are available.
So I actually haven't started Italian at U of M, so I'm planning to take a class on Dante's Inferno in the fall, and that will be my first, also my last, I guess, Italian class at U of M. I haven't heard about any Italian language tables, but I know like even if your language doesn't offer those like lunch tables or coffee hours, there's still usually a student org that relates to your language on campus. So like I'm part of the Italian Association for students. So like they had like their club meetings are like mostly in Italian. They watch like Italian films and do like Italian activities every week. So like even if they don't have like coffee table, you can still find ways to practice your language with people in like a program or like a club or something like that.
So there's still opportunities to kind of network, which is a great point. And we have a couple questions about first coming in. So one question was about just kind of vague in general, what should they do to be ready for the fall? Is there anything that's really important or helpful to do before moving in, kind of that pre-moving in point?
Honestly, take it easy and like take a breath and just, you know, be okay. Cherish your hometown and your family and your friends, and don't worry too much. It's really easy to like stress yourself out of like, oh my God, like I'm gonna know no one, I'm gonna be in a new place, and like it's gonna be okay because everyone's in the same boat. So you kind of just like, honestly, I'd say like just, you know, don't worry too much about what you have or like getting ready for the dorms because you can always get stuff when you're there, and don't worry about classes because you can always change them when you're there, and don't worry too much about like, you know, like trying to find friends on Facebook or whatever, because you don't really know those people through Facebook, and you'll meet friends while you're there. And like, you know, just really like cherish those like last little like moments of like being a kid and being with your parents and having them pay for your food.
I really second what Mya said about the Facebook friends, because also like going to a new school, even like as a transfer student, there's so many group me's of like people and like everyone's trying to make like fast friends because no one knows anyone else. So there's like this panic, and it's like, oh my God, like you become like friends with someone online, and it's like you have all these conversations, but like you're going to meet so many people when you get to campus, no matter if you're like a transfer student or like a new student, or like even if you're going in like as a junior. So like don't put that pressure on yourself to like meet new people. Like my best advice to like people who are coming in as like freshmen is to just like, yeah, like Mya said, like cherish like those friends from home, because you're not going to see them at least until like December, if not like in a year. So it's nice to like have those last few like nice memories with people in your hometown before you like uproot to a completely new place.
This isn't pre-moving, but a good move for me was figuring out where your classes are before the first day of class. Like I'm good with cardinal directions, but when it comes to like location directions, I have no sense for them at all. So I took a picture of a map of Central Campus that I had on my phone that I would refer to get everywhere. And it's fairly intuitive when you pick it up over time. But for my first day, I tend to get really bad anxiety on the first day of even high school, let alone college. So just my sister, the godson that she is, took me, and like we walked to where all the buildings where all my classes were, and I figured out, okay, how at a casual walking speed, how long does it take me to get here, and like what side of the building is the room on, like that kind of thing. If you have the time, it's like not everybody does this, so but it did help relieve my anxiety. So figuring out where your classes are before the first day is a pretty solid move.
Tiny little piece of advice, but in my experience, you do not need to buy textbooks before classes start usually, because you might not actually need them. Just that sounds funny, but like you might not need all the textbooks you think you do. Wait till your teacher tells you to buy it and then go get it, because they might be able to, like, you might have to buy it a certain way, and you don't want to end up with the wrong one, but you also don't want to end up with textbooks you don't need. So that's my like tiny piece of advice.
Also about textbooks, I don't know if like we're allowed to say this, but like there are so many textbooks online like that you can just access, and like sometimes like other people in your class will like send you the textbook, and like it's like and like your teacher might even like send you a textbook or like a book that you can just access on your computer like for free. So like there's really like no reason to spend like hundreds of dollars on like brand new hardcover books that you're not going to really look at, and like sometimes you don't even need the book, like Agnes said. So I would just like really wait at least until the first week of class, if not longer than that, to see what you need.
That's so true. Someone literally dropped the PDF to a textbook in the general Zoom chat of one of my classes last semester. So like, wait, someone will probably have it or give it to you.
I'll also add that the libraries are required to keep one copy of every textbook. You won't be able to check it out, but you can go and use it there in person. So there is a way to get that resource as well. We had another question just about courses too. And can you just share more about what to expect from the first year writing seminar in the RC?
So
No, go ahead. I spoke a lot.
Okay, I just took my writing class. I would say like no matter what the class is about, you will probably end up writing about your own experiences or like bringing a piece of yourself to your writing, and like your professors want to hear about you because it's like that close-knit environment, and like you're learning to write not only like technically but also like as part of like self-expression. So like I'd say maybe like kind of like before the class you might want to think about like what you want to write about, and just like have some like ideas of like maybe things that you want to put in words but like you never like knew how, and like just like I guess not really think about it too much or don't expect too much, but like you might have to write about like your own experiences or just like ideas you have. So just be open to like being creative and like expressing yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I think I'm a good writer, but I hate it. Like and it's painful to get the words out of my brain and onto the page. But my first year writing professor, Matthew, he was, oh my God, I loved him. His office was in the basement, and I would literally go bother him and like talk to his kid when he brought her to work. Like he was such a great teacher, and the class was so interesting. They have really interesting themes. Like mine was hideous monstrosities, tales of something, and we read like Dracula and Frankenstein. And I'm not really a horror person, but like I had fun in the class just talking about like the implications of these works and stuff. And like the professors, most of them really know how to make it fun for you. And because there's that personal connection where you're encouraged to call them by their first name, class itself becomes way more conversational and less like I don't want to say a chore, but like less like a chore, you know, because, and then it's a lot of peer reviewing as well for your essays. So that can kind of be less pressuring than like presenting your unfinished work to your professor and being like, don't rake me over the coals, because it's your peer being like, hey, this is a suggestion I have for you as someone who's on a similar writing level.
I also don't know if like all writing seminars did this, but like my professor, she didn't even like give us hard grades for like our first two essays. She was like, I just want to get a feel for like how you write. So like she was very accommodating, and I think that like they recognize that you all come from different high schools and you all have different like writing levels or writing experience. So they don't expect you to be perfect right off the bat, and like they will definitely meet you where you're at and provide you with like a lot of comments and like opportunities to grow no matter what your like skill level is in writing.
Just really quickly, like my professor allowed like me to rewrite an essay that I hadn't done very well on. And like I just talked to him about it. I was like, I really don't think I like did what I could with this essay. And he's like, yeah, like rewrite it. And I ended up getting a much better score after rewriting it and like working with him on it. So don't be afraid to ask about things like that.
And hearing all of your experiences, this actually segues really well into the question, who are some of your favorite RC instructors or professors, or if you even just want to give a shout out to a class you think someone should check out?
Okay, sorry, I have to speak. Christian, the Spanish, like Jasmine's laughing because she knows. Christian is a homie, okay? He's not a teacher. He is like my best friend. he literally, like, I was in the program that he runs for Palma where you tutor Hispanic students in Ann Arbor area, and he literally like drove us back to East Quad sometimes in the back of his van with his kids. like he's amazing, and like it's very much vibe dependent with him. Like if you click, you click, and if you don't, you don't. But if you do click, like he's your friend for life, and I love that about him. And I misspoke earlier. My writing professor's name was Christopher Matthews, not Matthew. I think I called him Matthews, so that's why I messed up. But like I said, he's an angel. He's so kind, and I think he's even offering a writing class in that you go abroad for in England, I think. So if that's something you're interested in, look around. I don't know if he's still offering that, but those two RC professors, like I'll never forget.
Yeah, I would highly recommend Susan Rose-Grant. That was my first year writing seminar. I think she's still offering the same one, the Art and Truth of Narrative Journalism, this upcoming year. She's wonderful. I didn't really know anything about journalism. And like also she is an RC advisor. So part of like the course was like getting advising and just like she would check in with us. I also really, really highly recommend Sarah Messer with like everything in my heart because she's amazing. She has a farm that has little goats. She offers a poetry seminar, which is what I took. I don't really know poetry. I didn't do it in high school. I'm not good at it. And like, I remember we had one-on-ones and she was like, oh, but you know how to code and it's like the same thing. And like, she helped me like see it in kind of a new view. And she was like, oh, like looking at structure and things like that. And she took personal interest in everything. And she still like, was like, oh, like I saw this thing and I thought of you. And it's like, I didn't even get to meet her. I never even saw her in person. And like, she's just like that amazing of a person. So definitely if you can, and the poetry seminar counts for creative expression, which is an additional little double dip for your RC requirements.
I will say a couple. Steve, who I like always forget to pronounce his last name because I never call him by his last name. He's an RC professor, but he has a class called Unhealthy Imaginations, which is my first year writing seminar, and kind of kicked off some of the things I ended up studying in STP. So he's kind of like mentored me through some of that. And then another one of my favorite RC professors is Avi Steinberg, who is a writing professor in the RC. I don't think he's teaching in the fall, but if you get a chance to take a class with him, as well as Mabel, who's one of the Spanish professors. She like helped me a lot freshman year. I literally had like I had like office hours 3 times a week in Spanish with all my Spanish professors and a Spanish tutor because I wasn't the best Spanish student. I needed a lot of help. So I really appreciate, and like all that was like really positive memories of those teachers.
My favorite professor is Leslie Stainton, but unfortunately she is retiring, so I don't think she'll be there in the fall. But she was just really nice. Like I said, like I transferred, I didn't know anyone, and like even though I'm not a creative writing major or anything, she still like, because she worked in the School of Public Health, she like connected me with a lot of like professors that she just knew, and like I got to meet with them and talk about like research. So I would say like that's one really great thing about like the RC is like, and even like UM professors in general, they're always like willing to help you and loop you into opportunities that they think you might be interested in.
For myself, me and Christian have a very funny story because the first semester I took Christian, we did not click. But then I took him 2 semesters after for readings and it was a great time. He's honestly hilarious. You can have some very interesting conversations with Christian about a lot of things. If you bring up terrorism, that'll be a very interesting conversation. Globalization will be a very interesting conversation. Religion will also be another very interesting conversation if you bring it up. But for me, Mike Gold, I've never actually taken him, but like I've just talked to him a bunch of times. I work for the RC and he's hilarious. He teaches a lot of the music classes within the RC that come for your creative expression. I'm actually taking an Afro-Cuban drumming class with him in the fall that I'm really, really excited about. But my biggest shout out, I don't know what Dr. Myers, her name is Jennifer Myers. I don't know if she's fully retired at this point because she was about to retire and then she didn't retire. So I know she's not teaching classes anymore, but she might be advising still. No, she's done. Well, if she's ever around and you ever like hear someone say Jennifer Myers, please talk to her. She is one of the most amazing human beings I've ever met through the RC. She helped me a lot with my major because she's like one of the teachers you take for like your pre-reqs, which you did take, but she's super amazing. She's helped me out so much like within the RC, without the RC. So if you get an opportunity to talk to her and meet her, please, please do.
sorry to speak again, but I just wanted to say also, even for the people that we're not mentioning, even if you don't have a very personal connection with them, during the semester you have under an RC professor, I guarantee you'll feel close. Like I remember in intensive 2, my discussion class was with Sandra. I don't remember her last name, but we went out as a class and went to Cottage Inn pizza and had pizza as a class after the semester was over. And I don't consider myself very close to her, but it was still like a really great class experience and I learned a lot from her. So you don't have to worry if you don't feel like, oh, this is someone who I'll remember for the rest of my life, because even those small connections you make can still make an impact.
All right, we're getting a little bit close to the end, but I have a couple topics. I want to make sure we still address a couple of your questions. And this relates to what Jasmine was sharing about the Afro-Cuban drumming class. Just sharing a little bit more about the theater, choir, and music opportunities at the RC. So has anyone been involved in any of those courses, and what can you share? And it's also okay if no one has done any of those courses or hasn't taken some yet, like Jasmine is planning for the fall. Oh, Abby.
I was hoping someone else would speak because I feel like I've talked a lot, but I did RC Singers, which isn't a class anymore because it merged with Choral Ensemble, I think it's called. But yeah, it was like everybody, you had to audition, but everybody was allowed in. There was no like set like requirement or whatever. Like you didn't have to pass a test. They just wanted to assess your skill level. And it was just a super fun, like 1 credit, once a week kind of class thing. And we had a concert at the end of the semester in the theater in the East Quad basement. And it was super fun. I went with a friend who had taken it a semester before me, and I was in choir for like 7 years in high school, and it was like the same thing. It was the very much the same kind of experience where like a bunch of you and your friends just, you sing, and maybe you're not that good, maybe you're super good, but either way you're all singing together, so nobody can tell who's who. And it was just a really great experience. And I know there are competitive, like actually where you have to audition and you have to pass options, like there's a glee club or something, and then there's a women's choir. I don't know what it's called, but you have to audition to get in. So depending on your comfort level, there are options for you, and Festiforum and Festifall are great places to look out for those.
Sorry. I just wanted to also shout out RC Players for drama students. So it's a completely student-run like theater group where you can and you don't have to be like acting. You can write, produce. Like there are so many different things, or actually be within the plays. And I think RC Players, I think each semester comes out with like some show where you can go attend and everything, or if you want to be a part of it. So definitely go for RC Players as well, which is specifically within the RC.
Yeah, there's a drama major in the RC as well. So like there's a lot of theater classes at like all different levels too. And I haven't taken any of them, but I have a lot of friends who have, and they've had a really, really good experience. There's also a lot of like, there's some German theater classes. You don't necessarily have to be a German student, but that's a really like cool, unique RC opportunity.
Yeah, I have a friend. I haven't taken an arts class yet in the RC. I've signed up for Arts Chorale for it at the fall, so I'm so excited. But I have a friend who took German theater, and like she said they performed like fairy tales and like folktale sorts of like plays. So like that's a really good way to like practice your language and get that like intensive experience, but like also be part of theater. Like if you were a theater kid in high school and like you kind of missed that, but you don't want to do like a theater minor.
And what's great about a lot of what you've all shared too is there's opportunities to do those in your first year. So I know especially it can be intimidating for a lot of the arts programs, thinking you have to wait into their senior year and kind of get that seniority. But for a lot of these RC programs, you can jump in right away and get to try those out. And I know that some of the RC players have their performances online. I talked to a student who's going to be a sophomore who is part of their kind of radio version of Dracula. So I know that one's on YouTube if you want to check it out. And then we did have one more question I want to make sure we didn't miss about, does it ever feel isolated having the dining and classes and living in East Quad? This is a pretty common question we get about, do I ever leave? Since RC has everything I need here in East Quad, do I feel stuck and away from the rest of campus? Anyone want to respond to kind of that fear?
I didn't really have as much of a problem with it. I think luckily because I did join some things that were outside of the RC. So like some of the clubs and stuff. So definitely like I would encourage like Festifall, even if you're not super like 100% in things, just kind of like maybe looking at some other things that are just like outside of East Quad. just to kind of give you something to do. And especially like in the winter months, I think it is really important and like really good that like you're just leaving, even if it like sucks and it's snowy, it's just a good idea to like be out and around and moving. And like also just, joining clubs and stuff like that are outside, it can give you an opportunity to like make friends who, maybe now you can go to West Quad to go visit them, and it's like kind of a little adventure. But yeah, definitely like it's something that you can kind of get stuck in. So it's a good thing to like keep in mind and be proactive about, especially before like those like dwelling winter months come.
I think we've gotten to pretty much all questions. All of you who attended, thank you. You had great questions. You definitely kept us thinking about stuff in a lot of different ways. And I appreciate all of the peer advisors also sharing some typed answers, some in the chat about research and things like that. And before we close, I just wanted to touch on one final thing. So all of you are going to be at orientation. So on different days, maybe not all at the same time, but all these incoming students who are here today will get a chance to connect with you. So if there's other questions, that's a great place where they can connect. What would you recommend also when they're thinking about classes? Is there any sort of attitude or advice you'd have? Flexibility, being open, coming with a schedule prepared or not? Any kind of final thoughts as students who haven't been to orientation yet? Things you would like to suggest that they keep in mind?
I'd say because like I went through a really hectic time in the beginning. Like I thought I was gonna like go to Michigan, like hit the ground running and like take the max amount of classes and like maybe even overload. And like I definitely identify with like those students who are like very planned as they come to orientation. But I wish someone had kind of told me to like calm down a little. I mean, like I probably wouldn't listen to them. I wouldn't have listened, but like if someone had said like you also need time to like take care of yourself and like eat and sleep, and like maybe you want to join clubs or like work, and that's not possible if you take 19, 18 credits. So I'd say like even if you're really planned and like you know what you want to do, make sure you don't overload yourself and make sure you still factor in time to like take care of yourself. I'd say like I don't want to give a number, but like don't take more than like 4 classes, please. Like take care of yourself is what I would recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone gave me this advice and I did not take it because I was dumb, but I can give you guys this advice and hopefully like someone will take it. It's like just taking it slow and like take a week or two to just do your classes. And then if you want to do a job or something, take a week or two to do the classes and the job. And then a week or two later, now start adding in clubs. And like, don't try to like rush into like, oh, I need to like have my entire schedule planned out before I even get there and I want to be ready and here's how my time's going to go, because like you just can't really plan for it. It is such a change. And I think like the other piece of advice that I didn't listen to was like, don't be afraid to be wrong. Like, don't be afraid to, join a class that you think you're really interested in and then not like it and then try to like switch it out. I think a lot of people get really scared that like once you've chosen your schedule, like you have to like be loyal to it in some way. But like if you get into a class and you don't like the professor or you just don't like the topic or it's not what you expected, like it's okay to, to switch out, and it's okay to like not have a class for a moment there, like you're not know what you're doing, and like it'll work out in the end. And it's just kind of like, I don't know, it's a big change, but that's not something that you'd ever do in high school. So like be okay with, a misstep here or there.
Kind of along those lines is my biggest advice is don't compare yourself to other people. Do what works for you and do your best and like strive for what will make you happy. Like I am not the kind of person that, and like I don't strive to get an A in every class I take, and I'm happy with the grades that I got or the performance I did. And like I know I did what I could do, and that is like enough. So try not to compare yourself with other people. Everyone's path is really different, and the best thing you can do, in my opinion, is to take what interests you and excites you and do your best. And if your best is a C, that's okay, because my best was a C in a couple classes I've taken, and that's okay. So don't be afraid. My best in Spanish was not passing proficiency, but I still did my best. So don't be afraid of that, and you'll be okay. You'll be able to do what you want to do, even if you don't pass or even if you don't get the grade that you were hoping for.
As for meeting with us, I would say have an attitude of flexibility, because I'm sure Jasmine can relate to this. As a rising senior, every single backpacking appointment I've had, I came in with exactly the classes that I wanted to take, planned perfectly, just beautiful. There was lunch. I didn't have to get up before 9 a.m. It was amazing. And then inevitably something would happen and I would have to totally rearrange my schedule on the spot. So have alternatives and be okay with maybe taking more time than the exact time that you're assigned to get your classes. Like for example, for me this year, I literally just backpacked a class for fall like a week ago. I had to email the professor and I was like, I don't have the requirement for your class, but it sounds interesting. Can I take it? And he was just like, yeah, I'll bypass it for you. So like, it'll be okay. But also don't come in with the attitude of we're going to figure out your classes for you, because we won't. That's something you have to do on your own. And freshman year is a really good time to explore, like I said, by knocking out requirements, by taking classes that you maybe only have a slight interest in, but that sound exciting. And with a good combination between those two attitudes, I'm sure you'll do just fine. And we're happy to help you.
Yeah, I definitely want to echo what everyone said, especially what Mya said about you are not locked into those classes that you register for. If you like start taking the classes, because there's a reason that the job ad deadline is not before classes start. It's a couple weeks in, so that you can actually go to those classes and kind of see what you like. And I can promise you there have been 2 different occasions where it was literally the last day of the ad drop deadline. And I'm sitting here struggling with the class. I'm like, I just can't do this. And I sure did drop it because I'm like, because like you don't need to like because there were, especially because like there are definitely alternatives to like fulfill that requirement too, that I'm not going to stress myself out and like freak out and like almost have a whole mental breakdown over one singular 4-credit class when there are so many more classes. And another thing is your advisors are truly, truly your best friend. Within the RC, one nice thing is that you don't have a set advisor, so you can kind of meet with anybody and like see like, I really like this advisor and they really helped me a lot. For myself personally, a lot of RC students, Charlie is a blessing to my entire life. Because there have been times where I'm like, I don't know what I need to do next semester. Like, I don't know what I need to take, distribution, my double major. And I will sit down with Charlie for like 30 minutes. And like after that, we have figured out every single thing that semester, alternatives and backups. So definitely use your advisors, because that's what they're there to do. And they're so happy to help you and like give you that support when you need it.
Thank you all. This is very good advice to kind of think about going into orientation, going into the fall, knowing you have the support network, also knowing to support yourself. You are your own support network. So make sure you take care of yourself. I like the conversation also about make sure you leave time for lunch. Very important. Don't forget those moments you need to take care of yourself throughout the day. And so this actually concludes our time. So we're at 6:30. And thank you everyone for coming today. So this has been recorded. We're going to put this on our YouTube page, on our website. We'll share it. So in case you want to review any of the information or share it with friends who aren't here today, feel free. But just thank you so much for coming. And I will close the Zoom shortly. So good luck with orientation and thank you everyone.